welcome back. I have pain in my back, so I like to get back to my bed. Let's read more about aviation. Close my door. Wait. I've been sitting here. I've been sitting there, this bad chair, many thousands of hours upload video. Before I was sitting this chair, and I have get pain in my back because I have problem with my body weight. My body weight get up and up and up. Been awake since 5 a.m. in the morning, and then I got up 6 a.m. and I start to make a lot of videos in my language Danish. Now it's 9:30. I need a little bit to drink, a little cola. So I have aviation PDF I like to read. Early aviation, I think it was. So let's get back to my bed and read. Yes, but I need a few minutes because I'm slow. I need to cannot have anything there. Cannot have water or anything there. So let's go to bed and read. I was looking at new computer. Actually, like this one. That's like $900. Intel Core i5 12th generation. But the new DDR5, they have a new memory. But I have pain in my back. Let's close it down. I have it. Everything is still open. Yes, everything is still open. Early flying machines. Yes, let's read it. I need a minute to go to my bed. Oh, I have pain in my back. But after 20 minutes, it's better. After I have rest like half an hour, it's much better. I need to look my cell phone. Yes, let's read.
Early flying machines. A 1786 depiction of the Montgolfier brothers balloon. Early flying machines include all forms of aircraft studied or constructed before the development of the modern aeroplane EB 1910. The story of modern flight begins more than a century before the first successful manned aeroplane, and the earliest aircraft thousands of years before. Primitive beginnings. 5th century BC Etruscan ballad depicting Icarus legends. Some ancient mythologies feature legends of men using flying devices. One of the earliest known is the Greek legend of Daedalus, in Ovid's version. Daedalus fastens feathers together with thread and wax to mimic the wings of a bird. 1a. Other ancient legends include the Indian Vimana flying palace or chariot, the biblical Ezekiel's chariot, the Ishrothramach built by blind druid Mugruth and Simon Magus, various stories about magic carpets, and the mythical British King Bladud, who conjured up flying wings. The flying throne of Caicus was a legendary eagle-propelled craft built by the mythical Shah of Persia, Caicus, used for flying him all the way to China. Early attempts. According to Aulus Gellius, the ancient Greek philosopher, mathematician, astronomer, statesman, and strategist Archytas, 428-347 BC, was reputed to have designed and built the first artificial, self-propelled flying device. A bird-shaped model propelled by a jet of weight was probably steam, said to have actually flown some 200 meters around 400 BC. 3, 4, 5. According to Gellius, this machine, which its inventor called the pigeon, Greek, peristra, was suspended on oia or pivot for its flight and was powered by a concealed aura or spirit. 6, 7, 8. Eventually some tried to build flying devices, such as bird-like wings, and to fly by jumping off a tower, hill, or cliff. During this early period physical issues of lift, stability, and control were not understood, and most attempts ended in serious injury or death. In the 1st century AD, Chinese Emperor Wang Mang recruited a specialist scout to be bound with bird feathers. He is claimed to have glided about 100 meters. 9. In 559 AD, Yuan Huangtu is said to have landed safely from an enforced tower jump. 10. Stained glass depiction of Aylmer of Malmesbury. The Andalusian scientist Abbas ibn Furnaz, 810-887 AD, reportedly made a glide in Córdoba, Spain, covering his body with vulture feathers and attaching two wings to his arms. 11. 12. The flight attempt was reported by the 17th century Algerian historian Ahmed Mohamed al-Makari, who linked it to a 19th century poem by one of Muhammad I of Córdoba's court poets. Al-Makari stated that Furnaz flew some distance, before landing with some injuries, attributed to his lacking a tail, as birds used to land. 13. The historian Lynn Townsend White, Jr. concluded that Ibn Furnaz made the first successful flight in history. B. In the 12th century, William of Malmesbury stated that the 11th century Benedictine monk Aylmer of Malmesbury attached wings to his hands and feet and flew a short distance, but broke both legs while landing, also having neglected to make himself a tail. 11. 13. Early kites. Woodcut print of a kite from John Bates' 1635 book, The Mysteries of Nature and Art, in which the kite is titled How to Make Fire Drakes. The kite was invented in China, possibly as far back as the 5th century BC by Mozi, also Mo Di, and Lu Ban, also Gong Shu Ban. 14. These leaf kites were constructed by stretching silk over a split bamboo framework. The earliest known Chinese kites were flat, not bowed, and often rectangular. Later, tailless kites incorporated a stabilizing bowline. Designs often emulated flying insects, birds, and other beasts, both real and mythical. Some were fitted with strings and whistles to make musical sounds while flying. 15, 16, 17. In 549 AD, a kite made of paper was used as a message for a rescue mission. 18. Ancient and medieval Chinese sources list other uses of kites for measuring distances, testing the wind, lifting men signaling, and communication for military operations. 18. After its introduction into India, the kite further evolved into fighter kite. Traditionally these are small, unstable single-line flat kites where line tension alone is used for control, and an abrasive line is used to cut down other kites. Kites also spread throughout Polynesia, as far as New Zealand. Anthropomorphic kites made from cloth and wood were used in religious ceremonies to send prayers to the gods. 19. By 1634, kite had reached the West, with an illustration of a diamond kite with a tail appearing in Bates' Mysteries of Nature and Art. 20. Man-carrying kites. Man-carrying kites are believed to have been used extensively in ancient China, for both civil and military purposes and sometimes enforced as a punishment. 21. Stories of man-carrying kites also occur in Japan following the introduction of the kite from China around the 7th century AD. It is said that at one time it was a Japanese law against man-carrying kites. 21. In 1282, the European explorer Marco Polo described the Chinese techniques then current and commented on the hazards and cruelty involved. To foretell whether a ship should sail, a man would be strapped to a kite having a rectangular grid framework and the subsequent flight pattern used to divine the outlook. 21. Rotor wings. A decorated Japanese take Tombow bamboo copter's use of a rotor for vertical flight has existed since the 4th century AD in the form of the bamboo copter, an ancient Chinese toy. 22. The bamboo copter is spun by rolling a stick attached to a rotor. Their spinning creates lift, and the toy flies when released. 23. The philosopher G.E. Hong's book, The Bao Puzi, Master Who Embraces Simplicity, written around 317, describes the apocryphal use of a possible rotor in aircraft. Some have made flying cars, fike, with wood from the inner part of the julub tree, using ox leather straps, fastened to returning blades so as to set the machine in motion. 24. The similar Molinet Ainoi, rotor on a nut, as well as string pull toys with 4 blades, appeared in Europe in the 14th century. 25. 26. Hot air balloons. A sky lantern. From ancient times the Chinese have understood that hot air rises and have applied the principle to a type of small hot air balloon called a sky lantern. Our ski lantern consists of a paper balloon under or just inside which a small lamp is placed. Sky lanterns are traditionally launched for pleasure and during festivals. According to Joseph Needham, such lanterns were known in China from the 3rd century BC. Their military use is attributed to the general Zhu Jiang, who is said to have used them to scare the enemy troops. 27. There is evidence the Chinese also solved the problem of aerial navigation using balloons, hundreds of years before the 18th century. 28. The Renaissance. Eventually some investigators began to discover and define some of the basics of scientific aircraft design. Powered designs were either still driven by manpower or used a metal spring. In his 1250 book De Mirabilis Potestit Artis et Naturae, Secrets of Art and Nature, the Englishman Roger Bacon predicted future designs for a balloon filled with an unspecified ether as well as a man-powered ornithopter. 29. Claiming to know someone who had invented the latter. 30. Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci studied bird flight for many years, analyzing it rationally and anticipating many principles of aerodynamics. He understood that an object offers as much resistance to the air as the air does to the object. 31. Anticipating Isaac Newton's third law of motion, published in 1687. From the last years of the 15th century onwards, Leonardo wrote about and sketched many designs for flying machines and mechanisms, including ornithopters, fixed-wing gliders, rotorcraft and parachutes. His early designs. Leonardo da Vinci's ornithopter wings. Leonardo's aerial screw design. Were man-powered types including rotorcraft and ornithopters, improving on Bacon's proposal by adding a stabilizing tail. 26. He eventually came to realize the impracticality of these and turned to controlled gliding flight, also sketching some designs powered by a spring. 32. In 1488, Leonardo drew a hang glider design in which the inner parts of the wings are fixed, and some control surfaces are provided towards the tips, as in the gliding flight of birds. His drawings survive and are deemed flight-worthy in principle, but he himself never flew in such a craft. 33. In an essay titled Sul Volo, on flight, he describes a flying machine called the Bird which he built from starched linen, leather joints, and raw silk thongs. In the Codex Atlanticus, he wrote, "Tomorrow morning, on the 2nd day of January, 1496, I will make the thong and the attempt." 34. Some of Leonardo's other designs, such as the 4-person aerial screw similar to a helicopter, have severe flaws. He drew and wrote about a design for an ornithopter around 1490. Leonardo's work remained unknown until 1797, and so had no influence on developments over the next 300 years. Nor were his designs based on particularly good science. 35. Other attempts. In 1496, a man named Sicchio broke both arms in Nuremberg while attempting flight. 36. In 1507, John Damien strapped on wings covered with chicken feathers and jumped from the walls of Stirling Castle in Scotland, breaking his thigh. He later blamed it on not using eagle feathers. The earliest report of an attempted jet flight dates back to the Ottoman Empire. In 1633, the aviator Laghari Hassan Celebi reportedly used a cone-shaped rocket to make the first attempt at a jet flight. 37. Francis Willoughby's suggestion, published in 1676, that human legs were more comparable to birds' wings in strength than arms, had occasional influence. On the 15th of May, 1793, the Spanish inventor Diego Marina Aguilera jumped with his glider from the highest part of the castle of Corona del Condé, reaching a height of about 5 or 6 m, and gliding for about 360 meters. As late as 1811, Albrecht Berblinger constructed an ornithopter and jumped into the Danube at Ulm. 38. Lighter than air balloons. The modern era of lighter-than-air flight began early in the 17th century with Galileo Galilei's experiments in which he showed that air has weight. Around 1650, Cyrano de Bergerac wrote some fantasy novels in which he described the principle of ascent using a substance, dew, he supposed to be lighter than air, and descending by releasing a controlled amount of the substance. 28. Francesco Lana de Terzi measured the pressure of air at sea level and in 1670 proposed the first scientifically credible lifting medium in the form of hollow metal spheres from which all the air had been pumped out. These would be lighter than the displaced air and able to lift an airship. His proposed methods of controlling height are still in use today. Francesco Lana de Terzi's flying boat concept C.1670 carrying ballast which may be dropped overboard to gain height, and venting the lifting containers to lose height. 39. In practice de Terzi's Sphere S would have collapsed under air pressure, and further developments had to wait for more practicable lifting gases. The first documented balloon flight in Europe was of a model made by the Brazilian-born Portuguese priest Bartolomeu de Gusmão. On 8 August 1709, in Lisbon, he made a small hot air balloon of paper with a fire burning beneath it, lifting it about 4 meters, 13 feet, in front of King John van the Portuguese court. 39. In the mid-18th century, the Montgolfier brothers began experimenting with parachutes and balloons in France. Their balloons were made of paper, and early experiments using steam as the lifting gas were short-lived.